We are now witnessing one of the most shocking dismissals in the contemporary history of Formula One. Christian Horner, responsible for elevating Red Bull to dominance and helping Max Verstappen win 4 world championships, was suddenly dismissed immediately after the 2025 British Grand Prix. However, does this radical choice hide a much more elaborate tactic than we can imagine? Could Red Bull have sacrificed its historic leadership simply to keep Max Verstappen for another season? And what does a seemingly casual conversation between Horner and reporter Ted Kravitz tell us about the fate of the 4-time world champion? To fully understand this explosive situation, we must go back a few months in time. The 2025 season has not exactly been the victorious march that Red Bull anticipated. Although Max Verstappen continues to demonstrate his mastery behind the wheel, the team faces growing pressure from rivals such as McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri at McLaren are more competitive than ever before. Charles Leclerc now shares the cockpit with Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, a combination that threatens to cause huge problems for the opposition. And George Russell, alongside young Andrea Kimi Antonelli at Mercedes, shows that the German manufacturer has not abandoned its plans to return to the top. In this turbulent environment, speculation about Verstappen's eventual departure from Red Bull has gained alarming momentum. The specialized media has begun to speculate about confidential negotiations with Mercedes, which has 2 seats available for 2026. Jos Verstappen, father of the 4-time champion, has never hidden his dissatisfaction with Christian Horner's management, particularly after the controversies involving alleged violations with a team employee in early 2024. The tension in the Red Bull corridors was palpable, and many observers believed that this instability could prove costly for the team. It was precisely at this sensitive moment that Ted Kravitz, a veteran Sky Sports journalist, had an enlightening conversation with Christian Horner during the British Grand Prix weekend. What appeared to be just another routine interview turned out to be a key clue to understanding Red Bull's tactical moves. Kravitz asked Horner about the assurances he could offer Verstappen regarding the team's future competitiveness. The response from the then Red Bull boss was surprisingly cautious and calculated. Horner clarified that no team or engine supplier could guarantee absolute success in the face of the huge regulatory changes coming in 2026. He emphasized that these changes represent the biggest technical revolution in Formula One in the last 50 years, impacting both chassis and engines. However, it was the next part of the conversation that caught Kravitz's attention and led to his intriguing theory. Horner suggested that people, clearly alluding to the Verstappen camp, were possibly getting prematurely worked up about something that was not yet guaranteed to happen. The Red Bull boss argued that it would be more prudent to wait and see how the grid would shape up in 2026 before making any extreme decisions about 2027. This statement led Kravitz to question why Horner was specifically mentioning 2027, considering that Verstappen's contract runs until the end of 2028. The indirect message seemed clear. Max should show patience, assess the team's actual performance under the new rules, and only then decide his future from 2027 onwards. A few days after this conversation, the bombshell announcement came. Christian Horner was dismissed from Red Bull with immediate effect. Coincidence? Ted Kravitz does not consider this a possibility. According to his theory, Oliver Mintzlaff and the Red Bull board strategically sacrificed Horner to ensure that Verstappen would remain with the team in 2026. It would be a desperate move to buy time and show that Red Bull can still be competitive under the new regulations. However, this strategy may have created an even bigger problem for Red Bull. If Kravitz is correct, the team may have secured Verstappen's services for only 1 additional season. In 2027, they could lose both the 4-time champion and Christian Horner for good, leaving them in a much worse position than if they had maintained the status quo. It is a complex chess game where every move could have devastating consequences. The situation becomes even more intriguing when we examine the alternatives available to Verstappen. George Russell recently commented that he considers the possibility of not being at Mercedes in 2026 to be very slim, which indicates that negotiations for the second seat on the German team are well underway. If Verstappen is indeed being courted by Mercedes, he needs to assess whether it is worth trading a familiar and historically competitive Red Bull for a Mercedes that may or may not return to the top under the new rules. The genius of Kravitz's theory lies in recognizing that Horner may have sent a subtle but powerful message. In 2026, with all the regulatory uncertainties, Verstappen would be better off staying in familiar territory. If Red Bull disappoints, he would still have all doors open for 2027, when the competitive landscape will be more defined. After all, as Horner himself pointed out, Verstappen is the best driver on the planet and will be coveted by all competitive teams. This circumstance reveals the relentless nature of modern Formula One, where personal and professional decisions combine with multi-million-dollar corporate strategies. Red Bull has bet big by letting go of the man who led them to success, hoping that this will be enough to calm internal tensions and keep their star driver. Horner, for his part, may have planted the seed of doubt about hasty changes just when he knew his days with the team were numbered. What makes all this even more fascinating is the perfect timing of the dismissal. Shortly after a conversation in which Horner advocated caution and strategic patience, he himself became the victim of a drastic and immediate decision. The irony is almost poetic. The man who preached waiting to see how 2026 would unfold did not have the opportunity to witness the outcome of his own advice. For Verstappen, all this turmoil puts additional pressure on his already overburdened shoulders. He must decide whether to trust Red Bull's ability to reinvent itself without Horner, risk a move to Mercedes with no guarantees of competitiveness, or follow the implicit advice of his former boss and wait to see how the new regulatory landscape develops. Each alternative carries enormous risks for someone at the peak of his career who wants to maximize his chances of winning more titles. Formula One in 2025 is showing us that what goes on behind the scenes can be just as unpredictable as the races themselves. Christian Horner's dismissal is not only the end of an era at Red Bull, but potentially the beginning of a complete power shakeup in the category. If Ted Kravitz's theory is correct, we are witnessing not just a dismissal, but a complex strategic move that could define the future of Formula One for years to come. What do you think of this theory? Did Red Bull really sacrifice Horner just to keep Verstappen for another year? And could this desperate strategy work, or will it turn out to be the biggest mistake in the team's history? Leave your opinion in the comments, share this video with other Formula One enthusiasts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any analysis of the hottest behind-the-scenes stories in world motorsport.